Ari Lewis Show.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports and News Radio. Thank you for joining us. At any time, you can email the program, arilewishow@hotmail.com, or email the station at Israel Sports and News Radio at gmail.com. NFL season in full swing, but before we get to the NFL, a very special sporting event is occurring in Israel. Online to discuss this, the man who is first place of all Jerusalem runners in the stair climbing racing world, Mr. Radio Mike from Kew Garden Hills. Radio Mike, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much, but I already have to correct you. I might be first place if you look at from the bottom of the standings going forward. But well, actually, there aren't too many people in Jerusalem that enter this event. But yes, I am doing the Marutz HaMadregot, the climbing the steps in Tel Aviv tomorrow morning.
All right, so how long have you been training for this race? You know, we know you're an avid trainer in this. You've done stair climbing races all over the world, you know, Boston, Chicago, New York, etc. How long have you been training for this particular event?
Well, you know, every event is more or less the same. You know, sometimes some are a little bit longer, some are a little bit shorter. So, you know, I'm basically always in training, in serious training for this event for the last 3 to 5 weeks.
3 to 5 weeks, okay. And any particular thing you're looking to do differently this time as opposed to last year? I mean, you do this often. Annually, you come out and do this, so are you looking to do something different this time around?
No, I just try to hopefully get a good night's rest the night before and give it the best shot the day of the race, and then I'm happy always with the result. I try my best, and that's it.
All right, and tell the folks a bit about the race itself, the particulars, the Azreli Towers, all the steps, the usual times, of, let's say, of the winner, you know, average times, and all the different particulars on the race itself.
Well, it's an interesting event. I've done a lot of events, you know, in America, but this one is interesting because you have a choice of either doing 3 buildings, which is 140 floors, which is the event I do. Only 30 or 35 people do that, and as far as the other people, there are 400 or 500 people do just 1 building, which is only 52 floors. My times have been anywhere from 50 minutes for the 140 floors to 55 minutes. The winner, believe it or not, does it in about 18 minutes. They just run up the steps and they do 2 at a time. And I'm just happy to walk the steps, and hopefully I don't get too out of breath and I don't have to stop at all. But, you know, as long as I finish the race, I'm happy. All
right. And are you running for any particular charity this time around?
Yeah. Of course, I'm always running for something. This year it's for HASC, which is an institution in New York. They provide camping services for disadvantaged children that have different disabilities. And it's an excellent organization helping these kids out, give them a camping experience from either 2 weeks up to 7 weeks. And not only is it great for the kids, and the kids love it, but it's also great for the parents and siblings just to get a little rest from the challenges of taking care of kids that have a lot of disabilities. You know, it's a job that's 24/7, very, very difficult to take care of sometimes special needs children, and this camp does that, and it's a great rest for the parents and siblings.
All right, there you go. Again, this is the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports News Radio, and at the end of this segment, we'll remind everyone what the charity is if you want to get involved and make a donation. But let's talk a bit about the NFL, Radio Mike. As of now, again, we're recording this program on Thanksgiving and Turkey Day, so things could change. But as of now, there are 2 undefeated teams in the NFL. Carolina Panthers, 10-0 in the South. New England Patriots, 10-0 in the AFC East. How shocked are you that there are 2 undefeated teams, 10 games into the season? Well, more than 10 weeks, but they have 10 wins apiece, undefeated. That hasn't happened in a while. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it's really made football very, very interesting this season because when you have such good teams, that means you have a lot of bad teams and a lot of mediocre teams. So as a result, now that you have the 2 great teams like the New England Patriots, and they always talk about, you know, running the table, winning every game of the season. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. And then you have Carolina. They're also, you know, they got everything going well for them. But you have a lot of bad teams, And the mediocre teams, you have some divisions that the winner of the division might not even be a 500 team, which is really, really interesting. And you have teams in the wild card also that don't have great records, and so if you end up winning, 8-8 is obviously 500, but if you win 9 or 10 games in the season, you're almost assured of being a playoff team.
There was much discussion a few years ago when Seattle was 7-9, but they won their division, hosted a playoff game, beat the Saints, who were the defending champions that year. Would you like to see a rule that if a team is not at least 500, they are not eligible for the playoffs, even if they win their division?
It keeps a lot of teams interested, and it keeps it fun for everyone. Now, I saw that game. I remember, it was a terrific upset that New Orleans lost that game, that Seattle beat them. But then again, who told Seattle who told New Orleans to lose that game? And, if you're really the better team, why didn't you win that playoff game? I understand the game was in Seattle. They hosted the game. But, if you get a curveball thrown at you, you still have to hit the ball out of the park. So the fact that New Orleans, the defending champion, lost that game, that's their problem. That's their fault. So maybe they weren't as good as everyone thought they would be.
So you're of the thinking that if a team makes the playoffs, even they're below 500, and then if they win, it kind of means they were meant to be there. They should be there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Sometimes you play just to make the playoffs. Like the Patriots, they try to win every game, so there's no letting up with them. But a lot of teams, they take it easy the last month of the season. They might take the whole season off, and just, play really hard in the playoffs. Just to make the playoffs, that's the first part of the season. If you make the playoffs and you get into that second half, the second season, which is the playoffs, and you do well in the playoffs, and, you run the table there, you win the Super Bowl. So, there is a theory, why knock yourself crazy during the regular season, as long as you have things running well for you, and that bell rings for that second season, the playoffs, that's when you really, really have to play hard. You see that all the time in other sports too, especially in hockey, where you have like a 7th or 8th seeded team, and they run the table and they win the Stanley Cup. Not so much in basketball, because the first place team really should beat the worst team in their division. But in football, you're just hanging out there and you're just taking off the regular season. You coast to the end of the season. Give it all you got. You never know what you end up with.
All right, again, this is the Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports and News Radio. We're talking to Radio Mike about the NFL season. Let's go a little bit to the New York Jets, 5-5, tied for second. But because you're talking about how it's a weird season, they're still in the playoff hunt. They very well could make the postseason. If the postseason ended tomorrow, they would actually be a tie with Kansas City, Houston, and Buffalo. So depending on the tiebreaker, they would get in. What do you think about the Jets' chances of making the postseason?
Well, that's exactly correct. They're tied right now with the Buffalo Bills. They don't have a consistent running game. Darrelle Revis in the last game, I think he might have had a concussion. They don't have a great quarterback. Ryan Fitzpatrick is okay. He injured his left hand. He had an operation, came back last week. He was okay. He tries his best. He's a good quarterback. He certainly is not a great quarterback. I think they finally gave up on Geno Smith as being a quarterback for them. But they don't really have a great team, but they're just as good as anyone. Like as you said, they're tied with the Chiefs. The Chiefs also have a 5-5 record. There are a lot of teams that are just a little bit below them, like the Raiders are 4-6. The Dolphins are 4-6. So they're also right in the hunt for a playoff spot. The Jets, they've really played down their opposition. A couple games they should have won, they've lost. But they're in as you said, a very weak division and a weak league, really. And so if they win 9 games, they have a good chance of making the playoffs.
Crazy to think about. Just something really interesting to look at that. Okay, let's stay in the AFC and talk a bit about Cincinnati. A few years ago, Carson Palmer left the team, and there was talk if he wasn't going to be traded, he'd retire. He's out in Arizona. We're happy to have him as a Cardinals fan. But Cincinnati, the last couple of years, has done very, very well, made playoff appearances, the first place in the North. So talk a bit about the Bengals.
Well, it's you have they have a very good quarterback. I've been an Andy Dalton fan. They started the season. You said that right now they're two teams at 10-0, but the Bengals at one time they were at 8-0. Now they've dropped their last two games, making them 8-2. But they have it basically locked up in the AFC North. The Steelers are 2 games back. I don't know where Roethlisberger is, and he's going to be coming back, not coming back, where they're at. So they're going to be in the playoffs almost for sure, winning 8 games. And, the NFL at this point of the season either wins the division or certainly is going to make you get into the playoffs. The Bengals have a very good chance, and why not? They're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be right there with the Patriots and probably the Broncos as well.
All right, let's talk about the AFC South. The Colts are 5-5, first place tied with Houston, but Andrew Luck out for the season. So it looks like that's Houston's division to win with that defense. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the Colts with Andrew Luck out, but, they have a 40-year-old there, Hasselbeck, who tries whatever he can. He'll throw the ball underhand, sidearm, any which way to get it to his receivers. They have 2 good running backs on the team, Frank Gore, Ahmad Bradshaw. The Colts have something left in the tank even without Andrew Luck. But then the Texans, they don't really have much of a team. They have 2 players. They have one on offense, Hopkins. Their offense consists of 3 names: Hopkins, and Hopkins. And on defense, which might be a little bit better, but they also consist of 3 names there too: J.J. Watt, and J.J. Watt. So basically, they have those 2 stars in the team. It's not an overpowering team. Even the defense isn't that great. But both teams are tied at 5-5, so it's anyone's division. And the Jaguars are at 4-6, so who says that they're out of it either? They're only 1 game back. So between those 3, one of them, even wins only 7 games, might make the playoffs.
All right, and let's go out to the West. Denver 8-2, as expected to be first place. I don't really see them facing much competition down the stretch. I mean, that's their division. It's really just a matter of time. Do you disagree or agree with that?
Well, could be that Manning might be out. He's injured. They do have decent running backs in C.J. Anderson, Gary Kubiak. So the Broncos have something left in the tank. Brock Osweiler is not really a great quarterback. But they have a 3-game lead on the Chiefs, so it's their division to win. The Chiefs, they still have Alex Smith. I've always liked Alex Smith, even when he was with the 49ers. Maybe the 49ers are maybe upset that they don't have Alex Smith nowadays. It is their division to win, the Broncos. I mean, having a 3-game lead at this point, you should really win the division. And if not, the Broncos will definitely make the playoffs as a wild card.
All right, again, this is the Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports and News Radio. My guest is Radio Mike from Kew Garden Hills, and we're talking the NFL. So let's move over to the NFC. Seahawks appear still be shell-shocked from what happened to them in the Super Bowl. My Cardinals first place, I certainly enjoyed that. I think the Cardinals are going to pull this out. A lot of experts had them winning the division before the season started, so I'm not so surprised they're in first place. Give us your thoughts about the NFC West.
Well, the Cardinals have come on very strong. They've won their last 4 games. I'm also a Carson Palmer fan. Larry Fitzgerald, he only has a good team behind him, so he's going to shine over there. I don't know how many more years Larry Fitzgerald has, but he's one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. The Seahawks, they have I think, really one of the best quarterbacks around, Russell Wilson. He's not very flashy. He can run well with the ball, get that first down if you need it. He usually does not throw crazy interceptions, except, in the Super Bowl, which is still baffling how he threw that interception at the end of the game. They still have good running backs and Marshall Lynch, and even if he's not around, they have Thomas Rawls. But once again, the Cardinals with a 3-game lead on the Seahawks, it's their division to win. There are only 6 games left in the season, so they win 3 out of those 6. The Cardinals have it. And if not, if they win 2 out of those last 6, they're going to be in the playoff as a wild card team. So, the Seahawks, they've taken a big step back. One of the problems with Russell Wilson is not that he's not trying. It's just that he doesn't have any good pass protection. And if the quarterback doesn't have that extra second or two to get the throw off, he can't hit his receivers or the running back coming out of the backfield. So it's a big problem not to have proper pass protection.
And just to tell credible, you see time and time again, the team that loses the Super Bowl next season generally does not make the playoffs, let alone get back to the Super Bowl. It's such a crushing moral defeat, especially the way the Seahawks lost. And Keith Olbermann did a special about the Seahawks should blow up the team and start all over. He may be right, as crazy as that sounded at the time. I don't know if they'll ever truly recover from what happened. Again, this is the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports News Radio, joined by Radio Mike from Kew Garden Hills. Let's go to the NFC North. Green Bay and Minnesota tied for first place at 7-3. Aaron Rodgers, as great as ever, his QB rating over 100. But Adrian Peterson, of course, suspended last year with his incident. He is back, already has 1,000 yards rushing. So right now, who do you think is going to take that division? And if you had to choose MVP just between Rodgers and Peterson, who would you choose?
Yeah, I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan. He doesn't throw many interceptions. As the year goes on and it gets colder in Green Bay, it becomes a bigger advantage for Green Bay, any team that goes there. I'm not a big Teddy Bridgewater fan for the Vikings as the quarterback. He has all the tools and the size, but I don't really find him to be a proven great quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Peterson is the real deal. And actually taken off last year by being penalized with his the problems that he had, beating his kid or whatever it was, that actually can help him, recuperate, being a running back in the NFL year after year takes a toll on you. And if you actually take off a year, you can be rejuvenated and come back really and play really hard. So that's what's happening with him. It might actually add a year or two to his career, which has already been a Hall of Fame career. But I really, the Packers, they still have a lot of good receivers. They have a good defense. Eddie Lacy is a great running back. I'm going to go with Green Bay on that one. But the Vikings should make the playoffs, and it's going to be between the two of them. But, I'll put my money on the Packers.
It's pretty interesting because most likely you'll have Minnesota and Green Bay in the postseason, and then the 3 division winners from the other divisions. And after that's wide open, and you can have Atlanta, you could have Philadelphia, Washington, it's possible, and Seattle will have a run. Again, there's still a bit shell-shock, as I mentioned. Let's talk about the NFC East, talk about your Giants. 5-5, Radio Mike, but nonetheless, they are first place in that division. That division's certainly struggling, as everyone below them, obviously below 500. Looks like the Giants to win, or does Washington, Philadelphia make some type of push and overtake the G-Men?
Well, I think you're really being very politically correct. Really, that division stinks. That's what you really have to say. I mean, the Giants are 5-5. They played some horrendous games there. They came close against New England. They lost in the last-minute field goal. They had all the chances to win it in regulation, but they kicked the field goal instead of ending up with a touchdown by Beckett at the end of the game. But the Giants, if they maybe, even though they lost last week, maybe they'll put it together. I mean, they've had some horrendous games where they gave up, I think, like 50 points to New Orleans. The Redskins, they're very good at home, but they really got beaten badly last week. The Cowboys are coming on strong, but they have a tough game coming up today. The Eagles, they've had a great team, and really one coach that probably should end up getting fired is Chip Kelly. I mean, he made some crazy deals trying to get their offense going, which was a good offense, and now he has Mark Sanchez as a quarterback. They don't have really the proper NFL team that they used to have. So the Cowboys have very little chance. The Eagles have less of a chance. The Redskins have played great at home, but on the road they're awful. And the Giants, they might end up winning by default. But if one team would win the division going 8-8, it would be the Giants. They don't. I mean, I think their quarterback is top notch, but week after week, they just don't have the effort there. And but then being such a poor division, they could pull it out.
All right, and let's go over to the one division we have not spoken about yet. That's the NFC South. Carolina's obviously taking that. That's not really the question I have for you. If the MVP is between Cam Newton and Tom Brady, both teams are 10-0, and both are having great seasons, who would you give it to, Cam or Tom Brady?
The reason I would give it to Tom Brady is because he always has multiple pieces in there. Like, he doesn't always have the same receivers that he's throwing to. It's not the same guys year after year. He elevates the player out there, like Danny Amendola. He makes him into a great wide receiver. He elevates the players in his team. Cam Newton has had a great season, so there's nothing wrong over there. They probably have a better defense in New England. But as far as MVP being a leader, I would go with Brady anyway. Maybe not very popular. A lot of people might not like him, but Tom Brady is the man.
Yeah, and the Patriots, they figure out how to get away, win games. So at this point, they are 10-0, and we'll see what happens. They flirted with undefeatedness a few years ago, 7 years ago, in Phoenix, Arizona, about to go 19-0, and then they lost to your G-Men, and they would later lose to them 4 years after that fact. Again, this is the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports News Radio, joined by Radio Mike from Kew Garden Hills. Let's get some quick predictions. Again, 10 games in, about 11 weeks in, and you see the favorites coming, etc. If you had to pick two teams to go to the Super Bowl, who would you pick?
Well, you would have to say the Patriots and the Panthers, but things never go according to the way they should go. I'm not going to go out on a limb. I'm going to still say the Patriots and Panthers. But if I had to say who would be second choice in the NFC, I would probably go with Green Bay. I'm a big fan of Aaron Rodgers. He has a lot of good players on his team, defense and offense. And if I had to go with a backup team in the AFC, I would probably pick the Bengals. There's no one out there that looks really, really great. The Broncos without Manning are not the same Broncos. There's no one really great in the AFC. So I would almost for sure think that Tom Brady, even if they don't end up winning every game in the regular season, they'll make it to the Super Bowl. It's pretty easy, but things happen. You never know.
All right, and by the way, my pick right now, I'm also going to agree Patriots-Packers because generally, or I should say rarely, do you see two number one seeds go to the Super Bowl for whatever reason. Usually when you get to championship Sunday, the round before the Super Bowl, one home team loses. I don't know why. It's generally the trend. And I love the idea of seeing Brady versus Rodgers. I think that'd be a terrific matchup, no question about it. Again, the Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports News Radio, joined by Radio Mike from Kew Garden Hills. And we began this segment talking about Radio Mike's running in the Azreli Towers, that stair climbing race. And Radio Mike is running for a charity. Now, to be honest, by the time most likely you're listening to this program, that race has occurred already, but you still could support the charity. Radio Mike, please tell us how people can do that.
Well, the best way is you can contact me and I can give them the link. It's kind of a long link. But my email address is radiomike33@gmail. And then I probably forward the link to them. I believe it's go.camphask.org/climbing. I had that right. go.camphask.org/climbing. I believe you can go on there and you can make a donation if you want. You can find out the latest about the organization. And it's really a very good charity.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it's certainly a worthy cause, so people can choose to help through that way if they choose to do so. Again, another episode of the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports News Radio. My guest has been Radio Mike from Kew Garden Hills, talking about his race, the Azreli Towers, on Friday, November 27th, also breaking down the NFL season. Radio Mike, thank you for being on the program. Great job as always.
Well, My pleasure, as always. Thank you so much.
Yes, indeed, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow night for Shabbat. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Stay safe. God bless. Be well. And shalom from Israel.